Good morning, Lakeview. Here's your announcements for the week. Make sure you hang around after the service and hit up some carnival snacks. There's a donation table in the center of the lobby, and then you can hit up all the food stations. Where the ladies at? Cross Connect is a coffee house for all women of any stage and age. Come connect, share life, and find community. It starts up September 27th. Junior High Live is a place for students in grades 6 to 8 to come and grow deeper in their faith. We offer this program during the 11 o'clock service on Sundays. We start off in the auditorium, and then after the music, we jump into the youth room together.
Grief Share is a weekly seminar and support group for those who have suffered the loss of a loved one. This year, we're going to be offering Grief Share at the Edwards Family Center beginning September 30th from 1 to 3 p.m. To register, contact me at allison@lakeviewchurch.com. Have questions about life, faith, and God? Try Alpha. No question is out of bounds and everybody is welcome. This is how Alpha works. We watch a video about the basics of the Christian faith, and then we sit around and discuss it and share some food together. Alpha runs for 10 weeks beginning September 24th from 7 to 9 p.m. We're going to start things off with a big party, so join us for supper and live music. If there's someone on your heart and mind who you think would benefit from Alpha, pick up an invite on your way out.
If you like it, then you better put a ring on it.
Those are your announcements. For anything else, head to lakeviewchurch.com.
So this morning, I have recognized that my car needs an oil change. And I know it needs an oil change because the last time I got it changed, someone put this sticker in the top window there. And I took a look at it the other day and I was like, whoa, 310,000 kilometers. My car doesn't have 310,000 kilometers. And then I look down to the odometer and sure enough, I'm almost at 310,000 kilometers. Which, first of all, makes me feel pretty awesome. Because my car I thought I'm like a proud papa. 310,000, this is amazing. But then it freaked me out. Because when we first bought the car, it only had 7 kilometers on it. So then I thought to myself, where in the world had the last 309,993 kilometers gone? I mean, I remember some of the big trips. I remember some of the small details, like all those potholes I missed because of my superior driving skills. Did I mention I'm from Toronto, right? So you guys love that, right? Because we're pretty awesome drivers, right? Yeah, you're okay with that, absolutely. Not a lot of claps, though. That was awkward. That joke did not land. And I remember this one time where we're driving through the state of Georgia, and you know when you're on a family road trip, there's commotion, there's noise in the car, you're paying attention but not really paying attention, and this rock flies off the back of a truck and pow, right in the windshield. Like driver's eyesight, it smashes, the dent is still there, and we all wake up, right? I'm like, it's okay, kids, no one's shooting at us, I know we're in the States, but no one's shooting at us, we're okay. We're okay. Or this one time I was on this really small highway, 2-laner, and this raccoon comes out of the bush, and honestly, I thought he was like this big. So he toddles out, and I hit him really hard, and I was like picking fur out of the wheel well for weeks afterwards. Yeah, I remember those little moments, but really, what happened to all those kilometers? Where were we going? Who were we with? And I then think to myself, did life really happen as I was going to those important destinations and places, or as I was returning from them? Or did life happen on those in-between kilometers, like kilometer 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1,000, 4,000? Was that really where life happened? For those of us who are here this morning who identify as disciples of Jesus, we understand this picture, right? We understand that God has this long-range plan, this destination, it's something that we are actually working towards, and it's kind of far out in the distance. But we also are acutely aware of the small steps, of these little kilometers in between. We begin to recognize that there's something sacred about those normal things. These are holy moments, those everyday things, some planned for, some unplanned for. Those are where we encounter God, where we recognize the availability of His kingdom, and where we begin to hear His invitation. When Jesus talks about coming to Him or inviting us towards something, He usually does it in one of three ways. Sometimes He does it like this. He says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." And if you were hanging out with us last Sunday, you remember this term from Psalm 149, verse 5, right? Where you're allowed to sort of lay down on your bed or push back from the table and sit on your couch and relax. Why? Because God's in control. I can go to sleep because God is awake. So when Jesus invites us to come and to rest, there's this sense of peace, that He's got everything under control. Other times, when He invites us to come, He says it in this way. He says, "If you abide in me and my words abide in you, ask whatever you wish and it will be done for you." Abide's a cool word, right? The dude abides. Big Lebowski fans out there? Woo! This abiding means like you're with somebody. You're close to them. You understand them. You know them. And if you know God, is it sort of like you rub this genie's lamp and He gives you whatever you want, 3 wishes? No, it's not so much that. That seems pretty individualistic. It's only focused on me. But when we abide with God, when we hang out with Him, when we praise and worship Him like we talked about last week, right? We love the things that He loves, hate the things that He hates. We do the things that He does. When we hang out, when we abide with Him, we begin to want the things that He wants. And that removes us from being individualistic, where we just sort of rub this genie lamp and want things for you and me. That's it, just me, just me. And when it opens up, it becomes holistic. It says, "God, well, what do you want of me? What do you want? What are you doing? What do you want for this world that's around us?" And the last and final way, when Jesus talks about participating, coming, inviting, He says it in this way. He says, "Then Jesus says to His disciples, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me." Or He puts it like this. He says, "Truly I tell you, at the renewal of all things, when the Son of Man sits on His glorious throne, you who have followed me will also sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel." Sometimes we get tripped up on this word judging, right? Because we don't like people who are judgmental. Some of you here wear judgy pants, right? You've heard that term before. This is not what the Scriptures are saying. When we see the word judgment here, it's more along the lines of we mediate, we care for, we keep things in order as they should be. So Jesus calls us to come. He calls us to rest, to abide, and to follow. It's an invitation to something. What's it an invitation to? Is it an invitation like God? He wants to give us this golden ticket so we can jettison and get off this planet when we die? Because the goal at the end of it all is just to go to heaven? No. It's never been about that. Ever, ever, ever. This invitation, this participation to join into what God is doing, this come, rest, come, abide, come, follow, is about bringing heaven to earth right now. Jesus prayed it on earth as it is in heaven. Or we could say in Saskatoon as it is in heaven, because at the end of it all, heaven is actually coming here and we will reign with God for eternity. So it's not just about making the cut. God actually has something bigger in mind. Clark Pinnock puts it this way. He says that the cross reflects not God's thirst for retribution, but His determination to overcome alienation and enslavement. You pick up what he's dropping here? It's not that God sends Jesus on the cross and it's bloody and gruesome because He wants payback for sin. No. What the Scriptures tell us, what this author is unpacking for us is this, is that God has done everything that He can possibly do to make things right, to fix them, to heal them, to restore everything. And where this moves you and I as disciples of Jesus is in an uprising against the disorder of this world. So when we think about Jesus' invitations, when we think about what the cross means for us, it's this invitation for you and me to be a part of what God is already doing and to realize that God is making Himself available in the big picture at 310,000 kilometers and beyond, and in the small little pieces, kilometers 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1,200, 4,000. because it's there that we begin to realize that our commonplaces become holy. The stone chips are sacred moments. The swerving of potholes, it's all part of it, all part of the journey. And at every step, God is trying to make himself available to us. He's not forcing himself on us. He's not making us do things that we don't want to do. He's just waiting for us to notice. So if those are the small little steps, how do we best understand the big picture? We'll pull back. And the prophet Isaiah is going to explain it to us, and it's a long one, so you better buckle up. He explains it like this. Pay close attention now. I'm creating new heavens and a new earth. All the earlier troubles, chaos, and pain are things of the past to be forgotten. Look ahead with joy. Anticipate what I'm creating. I'll create Jerusalem as sheer joy, create my people as pure delight. I'll take joy in Jerusalem, take delight in my people. No more sounds of weeping in the city, no cries of anguish, no more babies dying in the cradle or old people who don't enjoy a full lifetime. 100th birthdays will be considered normal. Anything less will seem like a cheat. They'll build houses and move in. They'll plant fields and eat what they grow. No more building a house that some outsider takes over. No more planting fields that some enemy confiscates. For my people will be as long-lived as trees. My chosen ones will have satisfaction in their work. They won't work and have nothing to come of it. They won't have children snatched out from under them. For they themselves are plantings blessed by God, with their children and grandchildren likewise God blessed. Before they call out, I'll answer. Before they finish speaking, I'll have heard. Wolf and lamb will graze the same meadow. Lion and ox eat straw from the same trough. But snakes, they'll get a diet of dirt. Neither animal nor human will hurt or kill anywhere on my holy mountain. So back it up a little bit. When scriptures like this talk about Jerusalem, God's set apart people, it's not because they're the only good people around that God cares about. No, God is trying to reinvent humanity, bring it back to its intended conclusions, starting with the nation, the people of Israel. And we unpack that further, and that later becomes the church. And as the church begins to develop and do its thing, really what the church is actually being humanity the way it was always intended. So when we read Jerusalem in this thing, it's not this faraway land, these faraway people. No, it's talking about us. And the picture that Isaiah is painting is saying, hey, you and me, we need to be doing the things that God is doing, like way back in the beginning, co-creators alongside of him. And that's the challenge for us here this morning, because sometimes we act like creators, doing good, beautiful, amazing things with life, and sometimes we act like destroyers. Have you ever met people like that? Or perhaps been one of those people at times, where the glass is always half empty, and nothing's ever good enough. And you're always tearing down ideas and people and things, and everything is terrible. And you look back at the receipt of their life, and all you see is breakdown, 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 tear down, tear down, tear down. And really at the end of it all, they haven't done or created anything. What the scriptures are inviting us into, what God's overall mission is this: come, co-create with me. Make beautiful things. Don't take things apart. Step into those broken, nasty, poisonous places and replace what's there with divine presence. Because the goal here is to transform things, to heal them, to make them as they were intended to be. And friends, this is God's big picture. This is what God has always been doing from the very beginning, actually even before the 7-kilometer mark, before the car was built, before the planet even was spun into existence. This is what God has been doing and planning this whole time. And now in 2015, he invites you and I to join in on it. Or maybe another way to understand it would be like this: that I believe that there is a creator, a revolutionary force at work that is compelling us towards love, peace, health, and wholeness. In recognizing such a presence, we must begin to care for creation, for humanity, and for the sparks of divinity in every aspect of life. We must accept the invitation to work with God in his redeeming story, Jesus' story, our story, the story. So when we begin to break it down in this way, we were going to describe ourselves as Christians, I think, in this light. Maybe we need to call ourselves renewal artists. Is that we have this job in mind, this end goal. We know all the little steps in between. And there's this beauty, this creating, inventing, innovative artistry that is a part of that. To do what? To salvage things, to restore things, to help heal the world. Because we remember God's big picture, right? Past 310,000 kilometers and beyond, it's renewal, Jerusalem coming, heaven and earth together. We will reign with him forever and ever and ever in beauty and in creation and in good things that we can't even fathom. But we also remember the invitation of Jesus to come rest, to come abide, to come and follow. So what the scriptures say to us this morning, Lakeview Church, is this, that there is a calling on us as a whole and as individuals to participate with God in the renewal of all things. Now, big time out. As you know, as a church, we are working towards something. Things have changed. There's different people here. Things are looking different. There's a bit of a different vibe these days. Because behind the scenes, as leadership and staff, we're saying, okay, God, what are you up to? Where are you going? What part do you want us to play in it? So in order to clarify this and roll it out in such a way that it's something that we can all hang on to and know and identify with, we've begun to break it down a little bit. So this morning, I want to present to you a refreshed mission statement for our church. And I think you've heard it before. It goes something like this, to join God in the renewal of all things. And you've probably heard me sneak this into like 99% of my sermons, because we've been thinking about it. And when we have the baptismal tank right here, we invite people to join hand in hand with God towards renewal of all things. This sets the big picture, right? The big picture that Isaiah invites us to, this beyond 310,000 kilometers sort of picture. But then we thought to ourselves, well, that's a great idea, but it's sort of up in the clouds. How do we bring it down a little bit? So one step lower, we thought to ourselves, perhaps we need some sort of values or some governing core principles to help us meet that goal, to help us participate in that mission. But then we thought to ourselves, you know what, when we talk about values and core goals, it almost sounds a little bit corporate and maybe not right for this setting necessarily. So we thought to ourselves as a leadership team, maybe what we actually need isn't values, because values sort of pinpoints you. Maybe what we need is actually some postures. And this is something that allows us to morph around whatever the world is bringing us, whatever the next challenge is, to allow us to sort of place ourselves and focus here for a bit and then focus there a little bit later. And we're going to unpack these as the month continues. But we're inviting you this morning and into this year to be backwards and forwards and inwards and outward. And this is what we mean. We'd love for us as a community to be backward leaning, to locate ourselves in God's story, because we believe God has been actively at work in our world as witnessed in the scriptures and through the church. And we stand on the shoulders of those who have come before us and rest on the very best of our heritage to influence our practices and worldview. There's something very important here, folks, because we didn't just think this all up this morning. Again, this predates even the creation of the world. And then it also allows us to say, you know what? We're actually part of what God has been doing this whole time. And if you actually look at the history of Lakeview Church, from the 1920s to today, God has done a lot of good things in and through this community. And we're not pushing any of that aside. We're saying, that was beautiful, that was great for the time, now it's our turn. It's our shift as a local church. What do we do next? Before we can move forward, we have to lean back on where we've come from. But as we lean, again, we do think in a forward way. We want to anticipate God's movements because we understand that our world faces challenges that must be thoughtfully navigated and negotiated. We are prepared to risk our comfort and security to help transform evil into good. So there is a beauty to think about where we have come back, and there is a strength to lean back on that. But we also realize that we are the first humans to ever live in 2015. And we'll be the first humans to ever live in 2016 and beyond. So as new challenges crop up, new things we have to face into, it's one thing to lean back on where we've come from, but it's also another thing to say, okay, God, where are you going next? What are you doing? How do we handle that one? It doesn't seem like it's in the playbook. God, how do we put all these things together to do right, to do the things that you are already doing? Backwards, forwards, and then inward. Inward reflection, creating sacred space to encounter God, we commit ourselves to a personal but not individualistic devotion to Jesus. We also submit ourselves to one another, trusting that in community we meet and hear from God. This is an important piece too, because somewhere down the line, probably around the time of the Gutenberg Press, 1600s and beyond, where people were actually allowed to hold the scriptures in their hand and have your own personal copy of the Bible, things veered off course just a little bit. All of a sudden, people thought that they could actually be a Christian all by their lonesome. Problem is, that's just not true. Is there a personal part to it? Absolutely there is, because Jesus knows you, he loves you, he is tied to you, it is there. But you can't have that personal piece without the communal piece. It only really works when we are doing it together. So personal, but not individualistic. A sense of, yes, God knows me, but also there needs to be the sense where we know each other and do this together. And last but not least, an outward disposition. Collaborating with God locally and globally. We accept God's invitation to participate in the healing of our world. We welcome spiritual seekers and skeptics and conspire with God in acts of justice and restoration. This is a big deal too, because we can't just do it personally. We can't just do it with these kind of sort of folks in this room, but we have a responsibility and a calling in our city and in our world. God is active and he's inviting us to be active with him in it. So again, we're going to unpack these more as the month goes on, but here's the line of thinking. There's the mission. It's the big goal at the end. And then we've got these postures that are in between that help us achieve that mission. But then we thought to ourselves, well, actually, how does this stuff work when we plant our feet on the ground here at Lakeview Church? What are the nuts and bolts mechanics of it? And I want to introduce you to that in a way this morning that we think is a clear way to communicate it. And we're going to talk about it this morning in terms of discipleship elements. So it's not so much a journey that you have to go on, point A to point B. It's not boxes to check off. But instead, the sense of elements is that it has all these parts. The church has all these parts that sort of swirl around, and you may start here and end there and move there and then go back. It doesn't really matter as long as you are part of the whole. But these are the three categories, the three elements, it seems like, that make up our church. To connect, serve, and grow. To connect, we've got the Sunday gathering, kids, youth, and young adults, men's and women's stuff, Alpha, Lakeview 101. These are all the pieces that are in place that allow people to sort of come into the church. Front door ministry, maybe. Allow people to check Jesus out at their own speed. But then from there, there's also an opportunity to serve. We can't just sit in that spot. And in that serving spot, we've got Lakeview 201 that helps you discover your gifts, where you fit. Serving Lakeview, serving local, serving globally. And then also opportunities for care and prayer, whether you want to give it or perhaps you need to receive it. Because there needs to be a serving component, an active component to what we do. And then from there, there's this idea that we need to grow. There's baptism that calls us out and says, yes, Jesus, I'm in with you with what you're doing. There's small groups, because the big group is good, it's fun, but really the action happens when you're in this tight pocket of other Christians doing life together. And then beyond that, launching this winter will be Formation 1, 2, and 3. We're going to get into some pretty heavy stuff for you keeners out there who want to put a dent into the universe. And you'll notice that there's a version 1.0 at the bottom of all this. Why? Because the mission stays the same. We're still going to join God in the renewal of all things. But how we unpack it and unroll it, we might change that. Why? Because it might just work better in a different way on another day. There might be another iteration to it, another thing to try and do. And if something's working great, we continue. If it's not needed anymore, then we just cut it loose. No big deal. And then beyond that, we thought to ourselves, as the mission postures, as these discipleship elements have all come together, we thought to ourselves, what other tools can we put in your hands to help you along the way? So you should have received this morning as you walked in a bright orange journal that says journal on the front. And inside, you'll find some of the things that I've just unpacked for you in a little bit more detail. You'll find a listing of all the staff, a listing of all the ministries and opportunities that are available here at Lakeview. And then towards the back end of it is that journal portion where I invite you to bring it out on Sundays. And when we talk about things that push your buttons that you're not sure about, that you want to check out a bit further, write that stuff down. If you're the journaling type that sort of journals with your own personal devotions, take it with you. Keep it with your Bible. If you're not that speed, it's okay. Keep it in your car. Because then you can bring it in every Sunday and you can refer back to it. You actually know where it is. And beyond that, one other piece that we want to give you here this morning is that we're relaunching LakeviewChurch.com. Again, not to be a cool church with a cool website, but to say, here's another tool to serve us as a community and to serve those who want to invite into what God is already doing in and through us as a church. And hey, more is coming. Are we perfect? No. Are there still some broken pieces? Yeah. Do we need more people on staff? Mm-hmm. Do we need some of you to really pick up your socks and participate in this and join in? Oh, yeah. But we'll get to it, one step at a time. But what I want you to hear this morning is this, that you actually have a place in God's created order, not only as an individual, but as part of the church. Because as we said 100 times before, the church is the pilot project for the New Jerusalem, for heaven coming to earth. We're doing now what things are going to be like forever and ever. And the beauty in that is that God actually entrusts us with it. And he calls out to you and me. And he invites us to actually join him in the renewal of all things. I'm going to invite the band to come out this morning. And actually, I'm going to invite you to stand with us as they come out. Will you stand with me? And as we sing this last song together, I'm going to invite all you terrible singers to sing as loud as you can. As we sing this last song together, I'm going to ask you prairie folk that are really stiff to move your body if that's okay, right? Maybe clap on 2 and 4. If you want to clap on 1 and 3, if that's your style, you can totally do that. Maybe not too loud to throw off the drummer and such. But this morning as we end, we don't end with like a rah, rah, pump it up. This morning we end with this celebration. That we actually get to be a part of what God is doing. So with the music and the hanging out and the ministries and the food and each other, this is a good thing to be excited about. So sing as loud as you can sing, clap as you clap, move as you can move, and then we'll eat together. Good? Sing with us.